Well, this is a series of videos I'm doing today. The first one was very depressing on how Maldek was destroyed, leaving the asteroid belt in its place. This video may sound a little depressing to a lot of you, too. It takes the idea of destruction a little bit further, but more in the current era. So I've had these visions of building after building after building after building is going to be bulldozed because there won't be anybody to live in them. Um, I started having these visions 5 years ago when I moved to Ramona. I had them twice. And they're a little disturbing at first, not so much why, but how. Because Charlie Lutz had warned us that 96% of the population was just going to vaporize. It's just going to disappear practically overnight and take all the idiocy and ridiculousness along with them because they're the ones promoting it, catering to it, and whatnot, feeding it with their attention and motivation, whatnot, expectations and habits. Um, let's see. And then I had the vision again 2 years ago when I moved to my new location, and again the same vision. Building after building after building is going to be bulldozed. Now, 10 years ago, I had this sort of a vision, but it wasn't so bad. It was during meditation, not during activity. These 3 times have been during activity. Um, But it was during meditation, and I was filled with lots of bliss, so it didn't bother me because I just assumed, by way of projection, how we always do, we think the rest of the world is experiencing things just like ourselves, so I assumed that the world, the planet, would be filled with bliss, just like Marshy and Charlie have been telling us. The planet will be surrounded in bliss. Um, but the San Fernando Valley, just north of Los Angeles, would become an inland lake and, or sea, fill up with water, and there'd be only one building there, a residential building, and the rule would be you can't build above 3 stories. Well, it turns out that's exactly the same rule in Venice, Italy, in which they poise all of their buildings and their streets on top of wooden platforms suspended above the waterline in Venice, and they can't build above 3 stories because even then, at that height, the buildings sink softly into the soft, muddy bottom of Venice, Italy. And this building in my vision in the San Fernando Valley looks like an office building. It's covered in glass, so it's kind of modernistic, but very simple and utilitarian. Not at all fancy at all. Just a cubicle, shaped building covered in glass on the outer perimeter of its surface, letting in maximum of light into the spaces within it. Um, and it's 3 stories high, and that's it. One building, and it's residential. That's that's all it is—a residential building. So I didn't mind the vision. Anywho, along the lines of destruction, what's going to happen is I finally figured out how the population is going to disappear. So this is how it's going to happen. It's not going to be disease. There will be starvation. That's true, because all of the mammalian life, at the very least, are going to become sterile. The males, the men, because there's going to be a flash of cosmic radiation for a very short period of time that will pass through the earth like a sieve, like as if we're not even here, in the sense that we won't have protection anymore because the Van Allen radiation belt, which produces when I say radiation, don't misunderstand me. I don't mean nuclear radiation. I mean electromagnetic radiation. The Van Allen electromagnetic radiation belt is created by the Earth's magnetic field. And if you know anything, if you've been following along, since I first found out about this in high school, this was many years ago, in which the teacher, my biology teacher, told us that since the 1800s, we have been measuring the magnetic strength of the Earth's field, and it's been steadily, gradually decreasing. And they've studied the crust of the Atlantic seafloor surrounding the mid-Atlantic ridge where it separates the two halves. There's a north-south line down the middle in which a lot of lava comes up and it pushes the two halves apart. And they've looked at it and they've realized that there have been geomagnetic reversals many times in the past with the poles in all kinds of crazy positions by comparison to where they are now. And what happens is prior to a reversal, the magnetic field of the Earth weakens and weakens, and the magnetic poles slowly move. And then all of a sudden, without warning, the whole magnetic field just disappears along with the poles. There's a period of time in which they're gone. There's no magnetic field shielding us. And they think it's 1,000 years, more, give or take, many centuries long in duration, which, there's a lot of extinctions because what kind of animal or plant life can withstand the cosmic radiation raw without any protection? That's what the magnetic field does. It gives us protection from cosmic radiation. Well, how can we survive? Well, I contend that it's not going to be that long because there was a psychic who said it's only going to be like a few days long or something, or several hours or something. Yeah, something like less than a day, like 16 hours or whatever. And I can see that because, as a possibility, because why the scientists would misinterpret the trace, the the recording, shall we say, traced into the sub-oceanic crust. Sorry, we have a noisy neighborhood here. Is because maybe volcanic activity increases during that period, which kind of makes sense. Something in the middle of the Earth creates the magnetic field, so if it should suddenly disappear, maybe volcanic activity increases and the seafloor spreading along the mid-Atlantic ridge should increase its rate of spreading. So that would give a false indication of how long the lack of a magnetic field surrounding the Earth should disappear for. Maybe it's only a few hours instead of 1,000 years. But whatever, that means we'll have a lot of earthquakes and a lot of happenings, a very disturbing period of time. Regardless, it's going to sterilize all of the testicles of all of the mammalian bodies on this planet. Now, whether or not it affects the seeds in the ovaries of plants and whatnot, and the pollen, I don't know. Can't say, don't know. We do know certain plants are going to be more sensitive than others and are just going to get wiped out because they're already showing signs of difficulty surviving under the stress of the increased UV radiation that's already starting to hit us because of the reduced. And we know it's reduced magnetic field because the ozone holes are increasing. And we love to cover. See, politicians know the real answer, but they want to cover by saying, oh, it's all the fault of the CFLs coming out of, leaking out of our refrigerators, going up in the atmosphere and destroying the ozone layer. If it is contributing, it's like a mouse, a lab mice sneezing. It has no impact to speak of whatsoever. It's Mother Nature who's doing it, because the magnetic field is diminishing. So the ozone is going to disappear. And you can bet on it. If there's no ozone layer in the stratosphere, this is not going to be any protection whatsoever. So yeah, you get a lot of skin cancer, but you also get sterilization. Aha, nobody's thought of this, or have they? And so everybody's going to be flashed for a short duration, and we're going to get this cosmic insight as to the way things really are. And a lot of people are going to panic when they see things the way they really are, when they wake up out of their slumber and get this horrific glimpse of clairvoyance or psychic ability in which, everybody will become knowledgeable for a few minutes, hours, or whatever the duration of this disappearance of the magnetic field is going to be like. And then it'll come back in its new position, the two magnetic poles in their new position, and then everybody's going to go back to usual as if nothing happened, but with a very strong emotional impact on their emotional body. And they're going to start running around like, no, wait a second, this is the end of life as we know it. Yeah, some people might misinterpret that as the end of the world. Well, it'll appear that way. But it has been prophesied that the angels are waiting in line to come in as their first incarnation of a human. And they don't want to get involved now because they don't want to get caught up in all the materialism that we are caught up in. They don't want to go the same route that we've gone. And babies will be born, Charlie Lutz, who will be 2,800 years ahead of their parents. And they will literally manifest the garden as it once was. as it's intended to be on this planet. Now, it could be this planet was a totally oceanic planet at one point, way back in the past, originally when it was formed. And the dolphins and cetaceans may have been the only humans on board. But now we've got these monkey apey humans walking around on what limited surface, dry soil surface of the planet there is for us to walk around on. And the dolphins, along with everything else, is going to become extinct. Everybody's going to become extinct, except those humans who can directly manifest objects, such as new bodies of humans. Those will not be sterile, and the focus won't be sex anymore. The focus will be direct materialization of whatever it is you want. But not you and me doing it, because we've lost that ability ages ago, but the newcomers who arrive here will be very slowly, gradually repopulating the earth with their kind and resurfacing the earth with their choice of plant life if perchance everything should become extinct. I mean sterile, excuse me, not extinct, but sterile overnight. So the plants won't be able to procreate, the animals, insects, everything. Which will be a good thing in the sense that we will eliminate a lot of vermin, a lot of, insect life and poisonous plants and animals that we don't need. Somehow it got here. It doesn't matter. We don't have to analyze or peer into the past necessarily. How did they get here? It could be an interesting story if you want to, peer into it, but I don't need to talk about what little I know. They'll just quietly disappear along with everything else. Gradually, as each generation that still is here dies out, not being able to replace itself. And so that's what's going to happen. So there will be a lot of starvation because the animal life will diminish. The plant life, we're going to run out of food, regardless of what we eat. Vegan or vegetarian or otherwise, carnivore, you name it. We're all going to get starvation smack in the face. And the scientists will be quickly, well, what else can we make out of petroleum besides plastic? Can we make artificial food? Oh, we'll try everything to stay alive, I'm sure. It'll be a race, breakneck speed. $1 million, $1 billion, the first person who can come up with artificially produced food from petroleum products. I wouldn't be surprised. Or biomass, compost heaps. Yeah, let's do it. Because like Soylent Green, the movie with Charlton Heston and the last movie that Edward G. Robinson was in, Soylent Green, it really made a big impact on my life when I was a teenager. And they were making, I might as well tell you, they're making food out of humans. So we may end up making food out of biomass because, people who die because, it could happen. In any case, we will be bulldozing probably because we'll want to clear the area. Because those humans, now I can see why, because those humans who are capable of manifesting, they may not need to use bulldozers. They may just dematerialize the buildings, the empty buildings. So I don't have to worry about it. Well, I see a friend of mine was telling me, arguing with me, no, why would anybody bother to bulldoze the buildings if there's nobody to live in them? Why bother? Just let them sit there. But I knew that was not the case. They'd be bulldozed, but maybe that was my false interpretation, my misinterpretation. They won't be bulldozed. They'll just be dematerialized. Whatever, however it happens. So in the midst of this hiatus of school for 3 weeks and extended Easter break for all the kiddies, and not needing to go to school anymore for a little while, all because of this coronavirus, maybe the pole shift is going to happen during these next 3 weeks. Maybe this was just an excuse that the politicians figured out. We got to get everybody to stay at home because, they're going to go wild in the streets when the shit hits the fan, so to speak, when this pole reversal happens. Wouldn't that be a good cover? I would say so. Just off the top of my head, just brainstorming, freebasing my brain cells here, just trying to guess estimate what is going on. Because obviously, the virus is not that bad. It's more media hype than anything else. So maybe it is a cover story. They always like to do that. They've been doing it for ages. It's always something fronting for something else. It's like the mafia, you know? There's nothing's real anymore. It never was for quite a long time. But we don't know. You'd have to be like me and be a full-time research scholar to uncover all this shit because, you know, it takes time. You only uncover a little bit of it, but what little you see, it's like, things are not the way they're made to look. Their history, science, everything. It's just not the way it appears. So, I think that's as much as I need to say. You see the nice blue sky, and I guess I might as well post this video. It's time to post it. Peace.